Hello, and welcome to the Arizona Civics Podcast. In this podcast, we will share our journey of sustaining Arizona's interest in reforms to civics by collaborating with civic educators in our state and nationwide. This important work is being spearheaded by the Center for American Civics at Arizona State University. I'm Liz Evans, Civic Education Program Director at ASU, and your host for this podcast. I will interview teachers, content experts, and civic education leaders throughout our episodes, providing valuable insights and perspectives. We hope you enjoy joining us on this journey to make Arizona a national civics model. Welcome back, everyone. I'm very excited today. We have a special episode. Today, I have Dylan Dalzotto. He is our Director of Veterans Programs here at the Center for Political Thought and Leadership. And today, Dylan and I are going to talk about veterans. This podcast will come out during Veterans Day, but Dylan, I'm going to have you introduce yourself as a member of our team, but also talk a little bit about your service.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Liz. As mentioned, my name is Dylan Dalzotto, and I primarily manage the Veterans Inspiring Patriotism program, which we're looking to integrate here at the center. My military career, I enlisted in the Army Reserve in 2000 and was deployed to Kuwait in 2003 and as a transportation specialist, and drove and toured throughout the country of Iraq, delivering heavy equipment and kind of whatever was big on a military heavy equipment transporter, which was designed to originally haul tanks. I came home and utilized my GI Bill to complete my bachelor's degree here at Arizona State University, and continued to use that GI Bill for a graduate program. So the Army was pretty good to me. It's always a love-hate relationship, as you'll kind of hear in the military from different servicemen and women. But overall, it was a good experience. So today I'm here to talk a little bit about Veterans Day, and then I'll also kind of follow up about the Veterans Inspiring Patriotism, which I previously mentioned. So Veterans Day was originally named Armistice Day and was set as a legal holiday to recognize the end of World War I, which officially took place on November 11th, 1918. And the idea behind that was dedicated to the cause of world peace. The legal holiday honored World War I vets, but over time, as the U.S. fought in wars, which included World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War, and recently Iraq and Afghanistan, and all the little wars in between, Somalia, the Cold War, and Bosnia, everything in between. So it reached far greater number and infected far greater number of men and women who served, and was later expanded to recognize everyone who served in the military.
And that is something that, November 11th, it's a holiday, schools have days off. How is it? Because one of the things I notice, when I'm on social media, or even there's just a general misconception of what is the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day, which happens in May?
Right. And, I get that a lot. A lot of my friends who didn't serve in the military, even Memorial Day, they'll, thank me for my service. And, I don't correct them just, out of being kind, because I do appreciate people when they say that. But Memorial Day differs, as it is a holiday observed on the last Monday of May, honoring the men and women who died while serving in the U.S. military. And it was originally known as Decoration Day after the Civil War in the 1860s, where Americans across the country, they began to hold springtime tributes to the wars of fallen soldiers, and they decorated their graves and, recited prayers. It was kind of a big event. Waterloo, New York was actually the first city to host one of these tributes. And in 1966, Governor Norman Rockefeller, he dedicated the first Decoration Day. So it was originally known as Decoration Day to, as I mentioned, celebrate those, decorating the graves and, really kind of coming together in different communities to pay their respect to the fallen. And in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Monday Holiday Act, which officially established Memorial Day as the last Monday in May in order to pay this respect. And it created a 3-day weekend for federal employees. And then later on, I think it was under Lyndon Johnson's presidency where they established that, nationwide. So, and when I say, established a 3-day weekend for federal employees, I think a lot of people think of it as just that, and they don't really know the meaning of it. I think even the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day, I don't think many people know at all.
Yeah. And that is one thing I have, both my grandfathers were Korean War veterans, and being a history teacher, that's always something that's bothered me because, yes, have your barbecues, do that celebration, but have an understanding that Memorial Day is to remember people who have died in conflict. Veterans Day is to thank veterans who have served, veterans like you.
Exactly. So, and I think it's important, one, they know the difference, but just to understand the two as separate, because as mentioned, I think many people with those two holidays just see it as a day off, unfortunately.
So one of the things we do here at the center is civic education. And you and I have had many conversations about veterans and civic education. So what is the role of a veteran in civic education?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned the Veterans Inspiring Patriotism program, so I'll give you a little history on that and tie it all together. So the VIP program, as we call it, was founded by General Joe Foss, who was a Medal of Honor recipient in World War II. He shot down 26 planes at the Battle of Guadalcanal. So for those efforts, he was awarded the highest recognition you can get from the military. Upon his return, he went on to a long career of public service. He was the youngest two-term governor of South Dakota. I think youngest governor, period, but he was 38 years old when he was elected, which was pretty incredible. He helped found the Easter Seals charity and worked for a lot of different nonprofits to support community. One of the interesting tidbits about Joe was he was the first commissioner of the American Football League and the National Football League when they came together to spark this first championship game, as we know it as a Super Bowl.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
It is cool. Yeah, it was really cool. So if you could find one on eBay or something, when you find one of those first footballs, it will have Joe Foss's signature as commissioner on the ball.
I feel like we need one of those for our offices.
Yeah, we do. I'll have to check out eBay, and he has a couple of family members. Who knows? Maybe there's one stashed away in a closet or something. But that's kind of a cool deal. He told one of these stories I heard on an old video that it was the Packers and somebody, I can't remember the other team, who was in the first championship game. But when they did the kickoff, the broadcast accidentally went to commercial, which was a big no-no because even back then they were, really looking at the ad revenue for, people watching this championship game on TV. So they actually, when they came back from commercial, they made them redo the kick and start the game over.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So the first was the Packers versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay, it was Packers and Chiefs, yeah.
And the Packers won 35-10.
Yeah, maybe it was due to that. They've got to re-kick the ball since the broadcast messed up. They went to commercial. So maybe the Chiefs would have had a chance. But what Joe loved to do more than anything, out of all of his public service work and in politics, he really enjoyed going into classrooms to talk about the importance of patriotism and public service, values of integrity, and overall just having an appreciation for America's freedoms. He thought that was, extremely valuable and something that students, don't get in the normal classroom setting. So in 2001, him and his wife, Dee Dee, founded the Joe Foss Institute to spark this VIP, Veterans Inspiring Patriotism program, to recruit other vets to go into classrooms and share their personal story. And this is where the civics ties in. Vets talk about their personal story, and a lot of times they will tie that into our founding documents, Constitution primarily, and also they have something to offer that's not in the history books. That personal story is extremely valuable. They might read about, and Liz, as a teacher, that they can learn about Vietnam and even the most recent wars, but to have somebody in there, that's makes quite an impact.
And I had one of those veterans, and it was nice because you're right. As a teacher, I can talk about the Vietnam War, and we can look at primary sources, we can do all of this stuff, but actually having a veteran there, I think really drives home to students. This isn't just history. These are Americans that have lived through these conflicts, and it is, and again, I feel like I say this all the time, but it's true. Veterans are the ultimate primary source. And having them engaged in classrooms, I think, really can elevate civic education, because public schools were created for civics, right? To create good citizens. And I think part of that is having veterans in your community as part of your classroom and helping out and having students understand, not every student is going to go into service, right? But there is still service that can be done for your town, your school, your state, or, if after you graduate, you want to go into the military, there's so many different options for you.
Absolutely. And, when I talk to a lot of people about the program, I think not it's a stigma, but when they see, like veterans and many of them combat veterans going into classrooms to talk about patriotism, I think it's, good for them to understand that, there is no political, military, or religious agendas in any of this. There is no agenda. It's just simply inspiring a student to understand, hey, we live in a unique country where you have unlimited opportunity, and for you to take advantage of that. I recently got a call from a 6th grade teacher in one of the lower economic areas in South Phoenix. And she said, having a veteran in the classroom, and not so much, history or civics based, but it really inspires the students to understand that there is something bigger than themselves and opportunities out there. Because as you may know, Liz, a lot of these students in some of these areas where people struggle, they won't know anything outside of their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So I think that's, important for them to be inspired to say, hey, I can do something with myself, besides, staying in this neighborhood and not knowing anything outside of this.
Mm-hmm. So one thing Dylan failed to mention is that he is the youngest member of the Veterans Hall of Fame here in Arizona. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's a really cool thing.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And this is another good plug out there for people interested in the veteran community and civic resources and also veteran resources. So a group called the Unified Arizona Veterans, UAV, was founded in 1981 by, we call them the Big Three, which is the American Legion, the Disabled American Veterans, and the Veterans of Foreign War. And the idea behind that was to get a lot of acronyms in the military, I guess.
There's a lot of acronyms in education, too.
Yeah, a lot of acronyms. So veteran service organizations, we call them VSOs, to get veteran service organizations together monthly in one spot so they could all talk about what they're doing within the community. And it's just a plethora of different initiatives that everybody's working on to support veteran initiatives and their families. So the UAV's original mission, and still is to support legislation. It's a legislative initiatives that support veterans and their families. So today we are a membership organization still of almost 60 veteran service organizations. And in 2001, they started this veteran recognition program called the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame, where they would recognize vets who go above and beyond outside. That's the key word, outside of their military service, because we get a lot of requests at the UAV for people to join or to become inducted in the Hall of Fame that say, my grandpa was a general and, he led, 10,000 troops. And it's like, well, we're not looking for that. We're looking for, somebody who donated or volunteered 1,500 hours at the VA to provide transportation for disabled vets to get to their appointments and, things like that in the community, going into classrooms to talk to kids, supporting initiatives like the VIP program. So annually we have a Hall of Fame induction ceremony that takes place in October. And we typically recognize 15 to 25 veterans, I would say. And it actually took place last week. Another fun tidbit was the first year when I mentioned it was founded in 2001. Joe Foss was one of the first. He was in the first class of the Arizona Veterans Hall of Fame because they made in our bylaws at the UAV, they said anybody, and to clarify, I said outside of your military service is what they recognized, but there was a clause in there: any Medal of Honor recipient would be automatically inducted. So for the first year, there were three, I say, Joe Foss, Jay Vargas, and Fred Ferguson. And Fred Ferguson is, I guess, another fun fact. He is the only living Medal of Honor recipient in the state of Arizona. That was a lot. Yeah.
That's such a cool thing. And I think when people think of veterans, they have this image in their head, but there is a very vibrant veteran community in the state of Arizona. And it's not just things, when I think of veterans, I think of Pats Run, right? Like I do Pats Run every year. I do all of their challenges there. The Tillman Foundation is one of the charities that I support. We have the Tillman Center here on ASU's campus. But there is a large community out there that is doing good under that umbrella of veterans.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people would assume, vets and military in general, that we're all just out there, I don't know, toting weapons and running around in swamps in the desert, but that's not the case. There's a large population when we get out. We want to help. We want to continue our service. That's kind of, what our mission is when we come out. In 2005, when I was wrapping up my bachelor's degree here at ASU, I was really struggling to find support to enroll in my classes and get books. There was a small VA office here on campus at Tempe, and they were really overwhelmed with this influx of vets because, they didn't realize that we were just starting to get involved in a 20-year war, and that many of these, young men and women are coming back to pursue education. And there was a group of veterans here in Tempe that started a big push along with Dr. Michael Crow to make ASU a very friendly veteran friendly university, I should say. And that's when they started the Tillman Foundation and the Tillman Center to kind of make it an easier transition for vets to just go to a one-stop shop. You can go there, talk to an advisor, see what you're into and get you registered for classes, figure out your book situation and really help you out. And then
for listeners, this is kind of our last wrap-up question. I always tend to ask these, but for Veterans Day, if there's somebody out there that's like, I don't really know what to do for Veterans Day. I know I have the day off, right? Like all of these students have the day off. How can people celebrate Veterans Day in small ways?
There are several events here in the Valley, and you can look online. I believe if you go to the az.uav.org, there are a lot of opportunities to celebrate Veterans Day. Wesley Bolin Plaza in downtown Phoenix has a lot of memorials, and they have a veterans event there. And also there is a large Veterans Day parade that is encouraged by family and everybody community to attend.
And I think too, just learning what Veterans Day is and if you're a parent or you're a teacher, talking with your students about it. It's not just a day off for them. I think especially we both have young daughters, having them understand that, yes, you get the day off, but here's why. We are very lucky in our family. My very best friend, her husband is a veteran, Uncle Brian Crum. We're very proud of you. So Emma's always, my daughter has always known why we get the day off. And, Uncle Brian went to war and did these things. And these are small things you can do, right? You can learn about veterans organizations. If you want to give to veterans organizations, I think that's a great thing too. or even just amplifying their message. If you're on social media, it's an easy thing to do to retweet or share something because maybe somebody else will want to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an interesting point you mentioned about Brian, Uncle Brian, is the majority of families out there have a family member who has served. And you might just think, oh, I think, Uncle or, whoever might have served in such and such the Army or whatever, talk to them and ask them about their service. They're going to be more than willing to talk about that. You wouldn't believe how many times when I go into a classroom and visit these other presentations, when the vet always asks, how many of you know a veteran or have a veteran in the family? And the majority of hands go up. So as mentioned with the VIP program, ask, and a veteran will be more than willing to share.
And that is something, we're working on getting that program off the ground. But when we do, you can visit cptl.asu.edu for more information. And also check out, Dylan and I have interviewed Jack Holder, who is a World War II veteran living here in Arizona. He's Pearl Harbor survivor. What else is Jack? Jack is like everything in the world.
He was a Pearl Harbor survivor and also served near Guadalcanal along at the same time Joe was serving. So he experienced it on both sides. He was there at Pearl Harbor and then he experienced the war.
And I remember talking to him and him saying, I didn't really talk about it at first because I didn't think anybody cared. And I think that that's such a shame because a lot of people care. And even just sitting and talking to him for that hour was probably one of the coolest hours I've ever had.
Yeah, Jack is definitely a unique individual. He will be 101 this December. And even his golf buddies, he mentioned Liz and I, they didn't even know he was a World War II veteran. And he didn't start speaking to students and really talking about a service till the, I think, mid-90s.
And then the same day this is going to come out, we have an interview with Marshall Trimble, who is the official Arizona State historian, also a veteran.
Yeah, and I don't think people even knew that we did have an official state historian. I don't know if other states have them, but Marshall's ours, and he's great. So definitely check out that episode.
Well, thank you, Dylan, for, first of all, clearing up the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day and talking about how we, here at the center want to support veterans in civic education.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Liz.
Thank you for joining us. Just wanted to give a heads up that you can find the Center for American Civics on all social media channels as ASU Civics. We love connecting with our community and sharing our thoughts on the issues that matter to us. So if you're interested in our content or just want to say hi, don't hesitate to give us a follow. Plus, we always include any relevant links in our podcast show notes, so be sure to check those out too. Thanks for being a part of our journey.